Hello guys, welcome back. My name is Nathan, and today we are going to be ranking and picking 10 different NHL teams that should offer sheet Elias Pettersson and Brady Tkachuk. Now with Tkachuk and Pettersson situations, contract-wise, pretty much heading to a stalemate, I thought it would be a very interesting idea to look at the entire NHL to see which teams make the most sense for Pettersson and Tkachuk. But when it comes to both of these players, who do I see as the most likely teams to go after him, and who do I think should offer sheet Elias Pettersson and Brady Tkachuk heading into this next season? Watch till the end for all the picks and all of the trade rumors, and make sure you hit that subscribe. But if you are new, 60% of the people that are watching are not subscribed. If you like hockey, this channel is the place to be. But without further ado, we're going to go to the first NHL team that should offer sheet Elias Pettersson, and this team was originally in the Jack Eichel sweepstakes, but since that's cooled off, I feel like Elias Pettersson is easily their best bet right now as their future #1 center. But they could have a top 2 center core of Swedish Kings, and I think it would absolutely work for this team going forward. They're already on the up and up, but adding Elias Pettersson would be huge. For the first team I think should offer sheet Pettersson, I have the New York Rangers. I think it just makes so much sense on too many levels right now. And compared to Jack Eichel, you're likely getting a much better product if you can actually sign him. Now, comparing Elias Pettersson to Jack Eichel, I would take Elias Pettersson every single day of the week. He's younger, he would also cost a lot less, not just in terms of the contract, but also what you're giving up. If he does sign for, let's say, a $7.5 million contract for 5 years, you would give up a first, 1 second, and you give up 1 first and 1 third round pick. Not even that much, especially compared to Jack Eichel, who we've heard commanded upwards of 4 first round picks in total. Compared that to Elias Pettersson, who might be better in some areas than Jack Eichel even, and Jack Eichel also not being healthy, you can start to see where the excitement comes for me when it comes to Pettersson with the New York Rangers. I think it would be an absolutely perfect fit. He would probably be behind because Zibanejad to start out, but he'd be the first line center for the future and would be so good with the plethora of wingers the New York Rangers have to offer. It's really a better situation having Pettersson in every single way, and having him be healthy is also a nice plus. But now we're going to move on to the Brady Tkachuk side of things, and the first NHL team that should offer him this season. This is a team that someone to discuss actually offer sheeting Elias Pettersson. I don't really see that making as much sense, or nearly as much sense as Brady Tkachuk. We're going to go on to the first team that I think should offer sheet Brady Tkachuk, and that first team is going to be the New Jersey Devils. I think the Devils make so much sense. They're trying to get out of this rebuild phase, and yes, getting up a first round pick would be risky, but at the same time, I think Brady Tkachuk will be absolutely perfect for that Devils system. They already got so much up-and-coming young center talent with Jack Hughes, with Nico Hischier, just to name a few. They need great bona fide wingers, and especially they need a player that can bring the physical and great traits that Brady Tkachuk brings. They have some good wingers coming up like Alexander Holtz and Dawson Mercer, who are more on the finesse side of things, but Brady Tkachuk can bring something to the Devils that they don't quite have and haven't had for a very long time. But I think Brady Tkachuk would make the Devils scarier in every single way, and with a shot and hitting ability, I think he'd fit right at home on a line with Jack Hughes especially. I think an offer sheet would be great for New Jersey, and especially if you're only giving up a first and a third, I think it would be an absolute no-brainer to get it done. Now, speaking of no-brainers, we were talking about the Rangers being in the Jack Eichel sweepstakes. We're going to talk about another team that was in on those sweepstakes that I think would be much better off, especially to basically spite Vancouver, to offer sheet Elias Pettersson. Going on to the second team that should offer sheet Pettersson, I have the Vegas Golden Knights. Now, it's another situation where the cost just totally outweighs the potential risks with Pettersson, especially compared to what Jack Eichel could potentially bring. Jack Eichel might be a better fit for the Vegas Golden Knights when healthy, but that's also a big if, and again, Pettersson would likely come in a much lower cap hit, still would have a longer contract, and would be totally healthy for this upcoming season. And compared to what the asking price was apparently from Vegas, I would rather pay the first and the third round pick any day of the week than what Vegas would have probably had to give up for Jack Eichel. It was rumored to be Peyton Krebs, a first round pick, Riley Smith, and I think Nicholas Hague as well. A ton of assets that are vital to that Vegas Golden Knights success, but you could bring in Elias Pettersson and also go against your division rival, which would obviously make things pretty tense, but I think at the same time for Vegas, it's totally the right decision, and he would be perfect as their #1 center. You could have then, obviously, Pettersson as your #1 center, then have Karlsson as another suite as your second line center, and then the depth of the lineup is just so much better, and I think that would make them so much more complete for the NHL playoffs. Now, Vegas is one of those teams that will have to give up some of that cap away to other teams to make this work, which would probably include a guy like Riley Smith, so they might give that player up anyways. But I think when it comes to Elias Pettersson, he's a fantastic talent, one of the best in the NHL, and for Vegas, who doesn't have a great future right now, Pettersson being there, I think would make it so much better. And just imagining Pettersson with Mark Stone, that is 110% dirty. But now we're going to move on to the second NHL team that should offer sheet Brady Tkachuk. This is another team that has some cap space issues, but if they can make it work and maybe get some other guys off the cap, I think this would be the perfect fit and might be exactly, Tkachuk at least, might be exactly what they need for the NHL playoffs to finally get over that second round hump. Going on to the second team that should offer sheet Tkachuk, I have the Colorado Avalanche. And again, they're another team that cap-wise isn't looking great right now, but I do think they could find a way to make it work, especially if it is under $8 million, maybe for a bridge deal. I mean, I think Brady Tkachuk would love to sign in the Colorado Avalanche system, but just imagining Tkachuk on that team during the playoffs, I think is vital, because the Avalanche have been kind of missing something during the playoffs the past couple of years, whether it be in 2020 with the injury luck, whether it be in 2021 where just Vegas was just able to pound them after the first couple of games. I feel like Tkachuk would be a force in the playoffs to be reckoned with, and it would be a scary opponent, especially come playoff time, which I think is something Colorado desperately needs. But now moving on to the third NHL team that should offer sheet Elias Pettersson. This is a team that honestly needs some sort of direction, and to me, I think this is a team that does, if they're going to want to compete at least, they do need to get an extra big asset, and they especially need to load up at center. Going on to the third team that should offer sheet Elias Pettersson, I have the Calgary Flames. Now, to me, Calgary should have rebuilt a long time ago, rebuilt a couple years ago. I think that would have been perfect for them, but when it comes to Calgary, it's obvious they still want to compete. With this current roster, though, I just don't see that really being the case. But if they are trying to really be a win-now team and make the NHL playoffs in that terrible Pacific Division, I think Elias Pettersson would be almost the perfect addition for them. Now, they do still have some good centers. I mean, Montreal is still pretty decent. You got guys like Lindholm who can definitely do their job well. But to me, Elias Pettersson could be the star that Calgary, I think, still needs up to this point. And hey, just like Vegas, if they can find a way to get at the skin of the Vancouver Canucks, a division rival, I think that would be welcome for them. But I don't know if Calgary's going to do it. They're a pretty passive team, at least Trivia Living is, and I'm just hoping that they're able to do something to make them just a less average team. Really, the team is pretty insulting how average they are, but I think Pettersson could get them over the hump and into the NHL playoffs. But now going on to the third NHL team that should offer sheet Brady Tkachuk, I'm just going to say it. The LA Kings are a pretty fantastic fit. When I was researching Tkachuk fits, I think LA might honestly be one of the best ones out there. In terms of cap space, in terms of flexibility, especially on the left wing, I think Tkachuk might be perfect, especially if you can lock him down long term. Now, it is still a bit unlikely that LA does it, but if they're able to find a little bit more cap space, I think it could work. And especially with how many center prospects they have coming up in the system, their left side is a little bit less optimistic, but I do think when guys like Quinton Byfield come into play, Alex Turcotte, once they get into those center roles, I think Brady Tkachuk will be absolutely magnificent with them. In the meantime, you could have him with Phil Deneau and just have an absolute monster defensive and physical line, and that could be perfect as well. A lot of flexibility, I think, with Tkachuk in LA, but I think it would be a pretty fantastic fit. He fits that style of game, he fits what they're going for, and would be something that they're kind of missing at this current moment, but would be perfect and would fit that young scorer future going in to the next decade. Now, Tkachuk with LA is a great fit, but we go to another great fit here with the fourth destination, the fourth team that I think should offer sheets Elias Pettersson. This is a team that I think has a lot of good flexibility, but I do think also could use that extra center for the future. They're a team kind of like Vegas where the next few years after these couple of years are not looking fantastic. Their future isn't looking the greatest with their current prospect pool, but Pettersson would definitely add some much needed youth, especially to that center lineup. Now, the fourth team that I think should offer sheet Elias Pettersson is the Boston Bruins. Now, first things first, the Bruins offer sheeting Pettersson away from the Canucks would be hilarious, not for Canucks fans, but for the rest of the NHL, that would be just insane. But at the same time, he also does make a lot of sense for the team. Their second line center spot right now is kind of wide open, and although they do have some options there, nothing is really pinpointed. There's nothing that's totally set in stone. Meanwhile, you can have Elias Pettersson as your bona fide second line center, or even first line center if you want to, but he would be kind of this successor after Patrice Bergeron once he finally starts to fade away, and it could maybe even happen after next season. But I think Boston should have a little bit more urgency. They've obviously right up to the cap, so it would definitely be an interesting situation to solve. But I think Boston would be a perfect fit in terms of the player fits, and I think he'd be great with guys like Taylor Hall and other guys like Nick Foligno on his wings. Okay, I do got to admit, this next pick is definitely biased, but going on to the fourth Brady Tkachuk team that I think should offer sheet him, I'm going to move on to my favorite team in the Dallas Stars. Now, Jason Robertson will likely command the more offensive side of things on the left side, but Brady Tkachuk, I think, would be an amazing fit in Dallas. When we look at the player now, and also his potential in the future, I think he would thrive as a Dallas Star. Mostly because of that defensive, physical system. I think Tkachuk would be loved by Rick Bowness, as he should, because Tkachuk would be an incredibly skilled player that the Stars don't really have. A lot of the more physical players don't really have the skill to back it up, but Tkachuk definitely does. And when it comes to their more banging, more defensive style, I think Tkachuk would be amazing there and would have some of his best overall seasons in Dallas if it does happen. Now, cap space-wise, there is some issues there, but they could trade a guy like Hudobin and get about half of it needed for Tkachuk, but I do think if they can make it work, and if they can make it work, they might as well go for it. They're still trying to win now, and I don't think a first-round pick this next season is going to be that valuable, especially if you're able to get a guy as valuable and as good as Brady Tkachuk. But now going on to the fifth team that should offer sheet Elias Pettersson. I'm going to make this quick because I think it is an amazing fit and there's really not that much explanation for it. But going on to the fifth team that should offer sheet Pettersson, I have the Minnesota Wild. Now I think Minnesota, if we're talking about perfect fits, man, Pettersson would be unreal alongside Kirill Kaprizov, even guys like Matt Zuccarello. Just imagine a Zuccarello, a Pettersson, and Kaprizov line. It would be nasty throughout the entire season. But I think it would give Minnesota some even bigger flexibility. Now cap space wise, they are already kind of screwed, so it would definitely be a tough fit to actually work. But you could have Pettersson as your first line center, Joel Eriksson as your second line center, Marco Rossi as your third line center. There's so much more flexibility with that Wild line, in my opinion, because of it, and it gives them an offensive edge that they didn't quite have last season, especially at the center position. I hope they make it work and make it happen because I want to see Pettersson playing with Kirill Kaprizov. That would be must-watch hockey every single night. But now we're going to move on to the last team to talk about today, the fifth team that I think should offer sheet Brady Tkachuk. Now, I kind of already talked about them as well in the Elias Pettersson situation, but I do think this team would make even more sense to go after Brady Tkachuk. Again, we're going to talk about the Calgary Flames. In my opinion, the Calgary Flames would be a great fit for Brady Tkachuk, not just because of having Tkachuk's there, but I do also think in terms of Calgary's fit and in terms of their system, Tkachuk would fit pretty well on that team. I mean, you could have a Tkachuk, Lindholm, and Tkachuk line, in my opinion, and I think that could actually work pretty well. But I do think with Calgary, it could work exceedingly well with their current pace, with their win now mode, trying to be as good as possible. I think this would be a great addition, would give a lot more morale as well to Matthew Tkachuk, but you could have almost two captains right on the team right there, and I think it would be fantastic for Calgary's morale, for the fans' morale, and it'll give them something amazing to cheer about. But I do think Calgary, when it comes to their system, if they're able to get both Tkachuk brothers, I think they could be a playoff team, and if they do get to the playoffs, they were already going to be a pretty hard team to play against, but they'd be an even tougher team to play against too. With both Tkachuk brothers, that would be pretty fun to watch. But that is going to be it for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy today's video, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit that notification bell to get notified on all the new uploads and all the new live streams when they go live. Make sure you comment down below all your thoughts on my picks, what you agree and disagree with, and who do you see as the best fits in the NHL for Elias Pettersson and Brady Tkachuk with an offer sheet. Let me know your thoughts. Of course, share this video with your friends, get it out there, and click on this card up here to watch all of my predictions and picks videos right in one playlist. My name is Nathan. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great day. I'll see you in the next one, boys and girls. Goodbye.